Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Jack Ryan, Season 3, Episode 5. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's pick up with Jack and Mike's side of things. Obviously, after the whole taking down Levin situation, Wright kind of gives them the go-ahead of like, yo, you go look for the uranium. Was it in Toka, and Jack's like, oh, you're gonna have our back, but is that you alone or is that the agency? And Wright doesn't answer because the agency's not too keen on you right now, and like they are gonna throw you to the wolves. So I'll back your play because you are right about this, and you do have a plan. So she's keeping it hush hush. Her boss is asking like, yo, have you heard from Ryan? It's like, oh, I haven't talked to him yet. Obviously lying through her teeth. And so Ryan, Mike, Rami, and Seiko end up going. And they find the spot, but obviously it's like you got to avoid certain levels of radiation. Once it gets 5,000, that's when you're in danger of getting like absorbing too much. And it gets to a point where they're walking, and all of a sudden it goes from like 1,000 to like 1,500 or something. And it's like, but would it just suddenly like jump like that? Because if it like in just a matter of steps, because it was a slow build up, and then all of a sudden, bam, it's like, wait, how did that jump happen? It should have been steady as we were getting closer. So Ryan's thinking they put like something, it might not even be, because even Seiko was like, it doesn't have to be something actually radioactive. It could just be something mimicking like radioactive waves just to make us think that this place is radioactive. And Jack went through because it's like, yo, are you willing to risk your life on this? And his gamble paid off because it was a front. It was a lie. And so they made their way through, found where the warhead is. I love that they ended up splitting up, and like Rami ended up trying to stab a guy. Because I get it, you're trying to go all stealth, and it's just, I don't know, it's that almost that video game thing of like, oh, watch me, I got this, I'm a stealth it, and you mess up the stealth, and you're like, I should just shot the guy. It's kind of one of those situations. I mean, I even love that Mike said it himself. It's like, you couldn't just shoot the guy. It's like, yeah, I get it. You didn't want to make a lot of noise. You want to be stealthy. And it's like, you got stabbed multiple times because of it. So ultimately, Jack ends up running into Luca, which Luca's like, right. They've already turned the uranium into a warhead. You need to let me leave with it because, hey, this is me. I've been on the inside. He's saying that so-called project, you act like it was resurrected. It was never resurrected. It never died. It's always been there. It's in active development the entire time because, I mean, obviously Peter is a survivor of it, and he's been, moving and shaking like everything up to this point. It's like, it's been a slow process all these decades later, but now it's time to put it in action. And Luca's like, the only way we're going to end this if we let it fall into like the warhead. Like everything has to go through the proper channels. We have to let things play out. I can't let you take the warhead because I've got to deliver it so that whoever is at the top of all of this, whoever's really the one pulling the strings, which part of me is wondering, is it Peter? But it feels like he's just another soldier who just believes in the calls. Because it seems like him and the other dude, was Alexei, who's the new minister of defense in Russia, like they're just like middlemen to someone higher, but Luca doesn't know who. Like I said, you'd almost think it's Peter, but especially with all the focus they're giving him, because like the other guy, Alexei, we haven't really like it might be, but the current minister of defense in Russia, we haven't dived in his past, but we've gone through so much with Peter that it does seem like he is not just a bit player, that he is a big player in all of this. Obviously, he helps orchestrate so much, especially on the Czech Republic side of things. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if Luca's just unaware of him, but obviously like Greer found out about Peter, so there's no way. I mean, that's also the thing too, like Peter potentially being found out, he's cleaning up messes on his side of the episode, which we'll get to, but it's like eventually someone's going to try and come and clean you up, right? I mean, maybe you're too invaluable for all that you've dedicated, and I don't know. I just don't think he's like the mastermind behind this, despite being someone who survived the so-called thing, which puts him in a position to, I mean, maybe that's straight up what it is, like, because maybe they don't know Peter is who he is. Because that's also the thing, that's why no one's probably looking his direction, because they thought he died all those decades ago when the so-called project, quote unquote, shut down. So, but yeah, getting back to the point, like I said, we'll talk more about Peter later, but obviously Jack ain't about to just let Luca leave because he's like, oh, you have to trust me. It's like, I don't. I was wondering whether Jack was going to let him leave and just not tell the others, but it's like, no, the warhead's there. They tried to, but, Luca left with it. So they ended up ultimately getting out of there, but it's like, right, the warhead's going. We're just going to have to leave. We were so close, but, no cigar. But ultimately, looking through some files, Jack ultimately finds out what the ultimate plan is. The plan is they're going to make it seem like the U.S. is the one behind the nuclear warhead, and that's really going to pop stuff off because they're going to basically put it inside of a U.S. missile. So that's really, really, really going to kick up the dust. This is the incite these wars. It's that 3D chess move type of situation by covering your tracks and putting it on your. It's almost interesting. It almost plays like something I recently was watching, The Equalizer, where in the most recent episode, there was a whole Nomad project of like, hey, I mean, there's a lot of parallels between the so-called project and the Nomad project. In Equalizer, the Nomads was a person that would be sent in, basically hire mercenaries from country A, have them attack country B, make country B think that country A, like that was an official call, and basically had them go to war, and the U.S. benefits from it. That they set up those type of situations, causing chaos and reaping the rewards of it. So that's kind of what's happening in this regard, but on the Russian side of things. So does not look good on that front. But obviously that ties in heavily with the other side of the episode where we're picking up with Radic and Alina, because Alina's like, right, so where are we going? You haven't decided yet, because he isn't sure what to do, because he admits he doesn't want to hurt Alina, because it's like, right, despite like me doing all that I've done, but I've done it because I believe in this cause. Because Radic's position in all of this is different than what I thought it was, because I thought he was a part of this in the way that Peter was, but the way Radic talked about it, or was it Greer that talked about it this way, that he's always had, like, that Radic's had Russian sentiment. So it's like killing Dmitri was like, he thought like, no, I'm doing this for like us, because like I don't like the way Russia handles things, but not realizing like Peter's connection to Russia and who he really is and all of this. So it's like, right, you thought you were doing one thing, but you were a domino in a long chain of events, and you had no idea that you were playing into this, because all he's doing right now is trying to preserve himself. It's like, right, I sent my wife and my child away so that Peter wouldn't, because it's like, it's like, I saw that you were talking, I know that you were talking to the American, and Peter's like, oh, don't worry about that, he was fishing. It's like, if he was just fishing, why you went, because I was like, whose apartment is he in? And it's like, he's in Peter is in Radix, and it's like, oh, I taught you well. Like, of course, you're really good. Of course, I'm here. It's like, yeah. Oh, and I also got your daughter. We will exchange. I will give you your daughter and you will leave me alone. Because it's like, yeah, your family might have gotten away. You might have sent them out of the country. But at the end of the day, I will be able to track them. There's no one outside of my reach. I will find them. So, because Radic was making this point to Alina. He's basically like, I think he wanted her to hide in a shed. It's like, right, I'm going to take care of your dad, hopefully, but also I'm going to show you who your dad really is. He isn't the man you think he is, because Alina was still in the dark. It's like she kind of figured it out, but it still wasn't. It's just the reality hadn't really set in until like the end of the episode on her side of things. Because at the same time this is all going down, Greer figures out the play. He's like, all right, we got to, okay, the last person that ended up calling Radic, it was Peter. So this is what this is about. And it's like, okay, this is kind of all on you, Peter. I know you kind of set all this in motion. And I love that conversation of like, right, Americans. So basically so conceited, so full of yourself, thinking you're 5 steps ahead when you're not. Like, you think you've seen the board, but you haven't. You're so busy playing this game, not realizing the game we're playing over here. Once again, I will always go back to it, the Kansas City Shuffle. If you've never heard me talk about it before, I talk about it all the time. It's from the movie Lucky Number 11. It's essentially the magic trick of, while all this stuff is happening here over the right, you will miss all the stuff that's happening over here on the left. That's the art of deception. I might have referenced that before. Like, I should also note, this is like maybe a month or two after I recorded episode 4. So I just got caught up with so much other stuff that I hadn't circled back to Jack Ryan until it's like April 3rd at the time of recording this. No, 4th. And so I have no idea. This might go up this weekend if I manage to finish the rest of the season. But either way, tangents and all that aside, that's kind of a moot point. But that's why I'm like, I don't remember like all the stuff that I've brought up in the previous 4 reviews. But either way, at the end of the day, I love that story that Greer told. He's like, yeah, when he was in Russia, I'd go by this like bakery, and the person would be making dough at the exact minute and everything. And it's like, why? And he's like, well, because in this world, it's kind of like seconds matter. And he's like, not just for my comrades, not just because of me, but for my country, every second matter, because that second can be the difference between life and death. And it's like, it's kind of like that kind of follows you. It becomes who you are. That is who you are, even past, you no longer being a part of like in a military situation. And it's like, Peter, you're that exact same way of like, but also it's like for him, it's like my daughter's life is in danger. I even love Greer being like, but will you kill Alina? Because she'll find out who you really are and she'll become an issue. Because part of me was wondering, like, is Alina actually his biological daughter? Or because we keep that, going back to Peter's past, like after the soul call situation where he was supposedly killed, he took off his uniform, buried it because he found the house, and he's like, oh, don't want them to think realize who I am. So it's like, hey, I'm a person that was robbed and shot in the forest. In the woods, could you help me? Eventually, sadly, that guy dug up the uniform. He found it buried beneath some stuff, and Peter ended up killing the guy. Because I thought, like, when we were introduced to this guy, I'm like, are we going to find out that he's the one that kind of took Peter and healed him up, but also is the one kind of leading charge with all this whole so-called thing? It's like, no, it's not him. Because he was talking about how the country was shifting, that it's becoming a place full of thieves and stuff. That the country's just getting, like, it's pretty bad now. It's only going to get worse going forward. So he didn't share that same, like, I guess, like, pride in what Russia is and wanting to keep it what it is, and also Peter ended up killing him. So, but they didn't show it in the episode. But part of me was wondering, like, are we going to find out that guy had a daughter? I mean, to be fair, Peter was there for a while, so I would assume you would have come across that at some point in time. But I was wondering, did he end up like taking Alina after killing her father, her biological father, and raising her and disappearing with her? But I mean, it's still a possibility, but he also makes it clear, like, he's talked about it before, that, like, Alina, well, because he's Russian, Alina's Russian, but I don't know if, like, maybe she's, like, maybe it's kind of like a Liz situation, from the Blacklist, like, the whole Masha situation of, right, she was Russian, but she was like a child when she was in Russia, so all she's known and all, like, her memories are blocked by tons and tons of trauma, the whole thing, right? So all she knows is her life in America growing up, being raised by her adopted father, Sam. So I was wondering if kind of there's a similar situation with Alina or not. But either way, shows Alina's perseverance when she was able to kind of get out of that shed that Radic had left her in, pulling up the boards, getting out of the zip ties, pulling up the boards and swimming underneath and getting out from the other side. But I was kind of scared because I knew that Radic had laid traps, and I was like, could it be that Alina might end up accidentally running into one, not expecting it? But it's also like, right, he probably accounted for that. I mean, he specifically set up the traps in places he knew that he knows Peter enough to know, like, right, you'll most likely attack from this angle, but I'm going to cover all these different angles. But yeah, Peter found the trap and set it off just to make Radic think, like, oh, but I don't know if Radic knew. I think he probably thought, nah, that probably didn't kill you. You probably saw it coming. I don't know. He did leave his station, so where he was posted up to go after, no, because he did ask Alina, I was like, where's your father? Because he's like, I know that didn't kill him. I know that was a setup. And then, sadly, he ended up killing Radic. And since ultimately, jumping ahead a tiny bit, we know Peter's in the wind. His wife and daughter, he has a daughter or is it son? I think he has a daughter. His wife and child, regardless, are not going to be safe because Peter's cleaning house. So, But for Alina, it's like, wow, you did all of this. Why? And it's like, well, just like, he's like, you and me, we've both taken oaths. And you might look at what I've done as like terrible, but my oath I've never strayed away from my loyalty. Once again, it's just his loyalty isn't to the country you thought of. You thought the country he'd be loyal to is the Czech Republic, but it's like, no, it's Russia. He's loyal to Russia. Saying like, regardless of it, my loyalties have never changed. I've always been dedicated to the promise I made to my country. And Alina's like, yeah, but I'm here representing the people who elected me. But he kind of undermines that by being like, no, you didn't win because of you. You won because of us. Like, I needed access, and so I needed to put you in a position. Like, I manipulated things so you would be in the position you are, because you being in your position allowed me access. So, and that for Alina, it's just kind of like, oh, I thought, it's like, right, I created a situation where the people of the Czech Republic thought they needed you, that you would be the one to fix their problems. And for, and it's, it's kind of sad, first and foremost, finding out all this about your dad, and then also finding out like, oh, everything I've done and accomplished, it was just a means to an end for some greater evil, and I didn't accomplish it on my own. It was my father's manipulations, which I was scared. I was like, is he actually going to kill her? Like, when Greer showed up on the scene, I was like, please don't tell me he killed her or something. But no, she's alive. But once again, we don't know that full conversation. A lot of could have went down between Greer showing up and other people showing up. So she's just like, yeah, my dad is gone. It's like, well, you know better than anyone, so let's work together. But she's like, no, we don't know anyone, because she thought she knew Radic, but no. She did have that really good line with him early in the episode where I thought it was a powerful line, where she's like, there's a quality you have about you that when you first started working for me, I thought was a weakness, and now I envy it. And he's like, what is it? And she's like, doubt, I could see it in your eyes. Like, you don't fully agree with everything that's going on. Like, you have your reservations about it, because in her position, in a world of like, politics and leadership, there is no room for doubt. You have to be confident in what you do. Like, there's no room for it, but doubt is a good thing. Like, you have to be able to doubt yourself, because doubt whether or not you're on the right path or not. And now it's kind of like, and those words kind of come back to her in some regards, because now it's like, what you've known is a lie. Like, Radic wasn't the person you thought he was. Your dad sure as hell isn't the person you thought he was. So, and what that means for Alina going forward. It's like, how can I help you when I didn't know these two people who are so close to me? I didn't know them like I thought I did. So, no one really knows anyone. And I think you can see it kind of shattered her spirit. Once again, especially her dad telling her, like, you didn't really earn the position that you're in as president of, like, the Czech Republic. So, the aftermath of that's definitely going to be interesting to see where that goes. We also catch up a little bit with Wright. Turns out she's getting sent back home, or she's getting recalled, because they must have found out she's been in contact, or someone ratted her out about being in contact with Ryan. So, yeah, they're like, yeah, you can't be trusted, so we'll handle things here. You're being shipped back home. So, where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode, it's going to be fascinating to see. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good